logical statement. Yeah? So it's already bound up in another level of reflection. And understanding that level of reflection is absolutely essential, both for Orthodox, Catholics, and Protestants alike. Taking it back to that. Yeah. And I think it's a great deal to be gained from that. There's a whole other thing which, to sell the book, will be in the chapter, which should be, how does this kind of reflection then impact upon how we now speak about the church? Because too often we speak about the church as an institution. No, the church is our Heavenly Mother. The institution is not a church. But there we go.
Thanks for another interesting lecture. Just a simple question. I have many questions, but just a simple one, I guess. So the debates around the title of Theotokos and the Nestorian controversy, are these about Mary, the church, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Totally. There's just no separation at that point. Yeah? And so the way you are speaking about Mary is always already overshadowed, I'm using that language deliberately, by how you're already speaking about the church. Yeah? Giving birth to Christ. Well, as we've seen, the birth of Christ is a lot more complex than we tend to think, because we are the body of Christ. And as Ignatius said, the head cannot be born without the body. We saw that quotation yesterday. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of building off the premise of Svetlana's first question about the imagery of Mary and the woman, particularly in John. And I was waiting. I'm like, surely we're going to hit, because what all the elements you're talking about were the woman in Revelation 12.
Oh, sure. I could have done an awful lot more.
And yeah. I didn't know, because on the references they would, quote Isaiah 54, and I'm like, but we're also talking Revelation 12 and its influence in patricians.
Totally. That would have been another one to bring up, but I could have gone on for hours.
I made a pact with myself not to ask a question, but who can resist? Thank you very much. You answered something that's been long on my mind, starting with Isaiah 54. Yeah. The idea of Jerusalem and the Israelites in the Old Testament is a very complex one, which also is garbled by translation. So it's all over Isaiah, Jeremiah 2, 3, Ezekiel 16, Micah 7.
And the womb.
The female language.
Yeah.
And the woman being separate from the children. Yeah. All this being rooted, of course, in ancient ideas of cities as female deities to their mothers, to their patron gods. Yeah. And so the Old Testament prophets, especially Isaiah 2, manages to say, here's Jerusalem, she's the mother, she's pure, it's the children who are impure, so I'll take them out and put them pure back in the city. It's a very clever way of maintaining the sanctity of Jerusalem while also bringing judgment. Yeah. Do you ever see any of that in the patristics, where they use this kind of concept to maintain the purity of the church, if you will, but also calling Christians to a change in behavior?
I'll have to think about that one, and I'll have to keep my mind open to that when carry on reading. I'm absolutely sure I'd find something about that in Origen. Nothing comes to my mind immediately. Really, in those first centuries, they're so caught with the figure as it's used by Paul in Galatians 4. Yeah? But no, I really have to think about that further. Nothing comes to my mind. And it usually does, but not this time. Thank you.
Yeah, so we heard a reference to Revelation 12 in one of the other questions. In Revelation 17, we have a very different female image there with the great prostitute. Yeah. How does an image like that play into some of the themes that you've discussed here?
I would recommend you look at Peter Leithart's commentary on Revelation. He does it extensively in a way that I just don't recall at the moment. But that's part of what's going on in Revelation, the contrast between the two women and that kind of thing, definitely. Yeah.
What are we meant to make of the relationship between Mary and Eve in light of the latter section of Irenaeus' work, where he sees, he kind of ties a relationship between Eve bringing the man into sin, and then Mary bringing the righteousness through bringing them in.
Yeah, do you remember when in the first lecture we spoke about the question of reversal, the reversal of the biblical narrative? He does it in book 3, not in book 5, but in book 3, chapter 22, 23, about the reversals that then take place between Mary and Eve, Christ and Adam, leading into sin, leading out of sin. It's all played out in that. Does that answer? It doesn't really answer your question, but affirming the point that you're making with regard to it. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think all questions have been answered. Interestingly, no one from overseas tonight with questions. Well, it only remains me to say thank you very much, Professor.